Presiding Officer, in 2021, Nicola Sturgeon said the Bute House Agreement meant bold policy action on pressing issues. She told us it would mean a commitment to more affordable housing, a better deal for tenants, steps to accelerate our transition to net zero and a focus on green jobs. But less than 3 years on, under his weak leadership, the affordable housing budget has been slashed. New rents are rising faster in Scotland than the rest of the UK. Climate targets have been abandoned, and the only two green jobs created, Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater's, have now come to an end, just like the Bute House Agreement. But with this government's record of failure and incompetence, people across Scotland will be asking, why have only two ministers lost their jobs today?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, Anna Sarwar asked me about a whole range of climate change-related questions. Of course, this is the week where we've just seen consenting and approval for the world's largest commercial round for floating offshore wind. It puts Scotland at the very forefront of offshore wind development globally. Let's also look at Labour's credibility when it comes to tackling climate change. They are, of course, the party that ditched their commitment to invest £28 billion in green energy, giving in to pressure from the Tories, risking squandering Scotland's immense renewable energy potential. Labour in Glasgow used to support a low-emission zone, then of course tried to stop it from being introduced. They teamed up with the Tories to oppose workplace parking levies. So whether it's at Westminster, whether it's at Holyrood, whether it's in councils across the country, Labour is guilty of not just the worst type of political cowardice, they are guilty of hypocrisy and, frankly, climate denial when the SNP is taking the action that is necessary. So I say to Anas Sarwar, we will continue to support and take action where necessary to tackle not just the climate crisis, but the nature crisis as well. Wouldn't it be quite something that, as opposed to opposing every measure we take to tackle the climate crisis, that Anas Sarwar actually supported it and demonstrated he's serious about tackling the climate emergency?
Anas Sarwar.
I'm happy for Humza Yousaf to delude himself that everything's going well and he's having a great week. Keep it up, First Minister. The First Minister actually spent weeks defending this discredited government, and he protests now. But if Humza Yousaf won't listen to me, perhaps he'll listen to Humza Yousaf. Because just days ago he said the Bute House Agreement was worth its weight in gold. He was pleading, I know the Deputy First Minister won't want to hear this, he was pleading with Green Party members to keep his shambolic government together. I hope that the cooperation agreement will continue. I hope that Green members will also see the benefit of that cooperation. But now he's been forced into a humiliating U-turn, and he knows it. These are his words. I can't imagine being the leader of the SNP and the first thing I do is destabilise the government by going into a minority government. I think that would be a tremendously foolish thing to do. Does he feel tremendously foolish today?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, not content with stealing Tory policies, Anna Sarwar is now nicking Tory lines, Presiding Officer, when it comes to the questions that he asks.
Let's hear the First Minister.
This year, Anna Sarwar talks about
the First Minister.
Principles. Let me remind Anna Sarwar about his record of when it comes to his principles. Anna Sarwar described lifting the cap on bankers' bonuses when the Tories did it as economically illiterate and morally repugnant. But then, of course, when Keir Starmer does it, Anna Sarwar, like a good boy, falls into line. Anna Sarwar used to oppose the two-child limit. He now supports Keir Starmer in retaining it. He used to, of course, believe in progressive taxation. He now supports tax cuts for the wealthy at the expense of public services. Isn't it the case, Presiding Officer, that the only principles Anna Sarwar has are those that Keir Starmer tells him he's allowed to have, Presiding Officer?
Anna Sarwar.
Presiding Officer, I'm rebuilding my party and looking forward to the next general election. He's destroying his party and wants to run away from a general election. Because this First Minister is claiming that this is all a sign of strength. The louder he shouts, the weaker he sounds. But for once, people agree with Lorna Slater. He is weak, hopeless and untrustworthy. Now, the challenges facing our country have never been so great. But Scotland's government has never been so poor and its leadership has never been so weak. 1 in 7 Scots are stuck on an NHS waiting list as he fails to get a grip of the NHS crisis. Families are struggling to make ends meet while this government wastes public money. And green jobs are going elsewhere while he scraps Scotland's climate targets. The people of Scotland can see that the SNP have lost their way. They're weak, divided, incompetent and putting party before country. The people of Scotland didn't vote for this First Minister. The people of Scotland didn't vote for this mess and this chaos. So isn't it time to end the circus and call an election?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, of course, the country will be going to the polls, I hope, sooner rather than later in a general election. Here's the message that each of us will be able to take. I'll be able to look in the whites of the eyes of the people of Scotland on every doorstep in the country, and I can say that they should be able to vote for a party whose values are the people of Scotland's values. That's through our actions, because our actions are estimated to lift 100,000 children out of poverty. That is a party that has chosen investment in the NHS over tax cuts for the wealthy, a nation where, of course, the only one in the United Kingdom that hasn't had junior doctors or nurses going or strike. Well, Anna Sarwar's party is the party that would lift the cap on bankers' bonuses but retain the cap on child benefits. A party that wants to retain the rape clause, a party that wants to spend billions of pounds on the obscenity of nuclear weapons, not on reducing household poverty. The party that wants to keep Scotland out of the European Union. Presiding Officer, Anna Sarwar used to believe in many of the values that this government believes in. He has, of course, flip-flopped, dumped and ditched those principles because his bosses in London have told him to do. That is the height of hypocrisy, and the people of Scotland will see through it, Presiding Officer.